Welcome to the Lexington Public Library's Tales from the Kentucky Room podcast, where we discuss everything Lexington and Fayette County history. I'm Mariam, and in each episode of this podcast, we will feature a guest that will share a piece of local history. So thank you for tuning in and enjoy. Early in 2024, the Lexington Public Library will be opening a brand new location on the corner of Versailles Road and Village Drive. Residents of this neighborhood will know the location very well, as it was the site of the Village Branch from its opening in 2004 until it was closed in June of 2022. The building was demolished in the summer of 2022 in order to make way for the upgraded facility, which will be called the Marksbury Family Branch. In 2018, the library had embarked on a master facilities plan, reaching out to the community for their input on how the library could better meet the needs of the Lexington community. By far, the need for a much bigger location and expanded services at the Village Branch was top priority. With the generous donation from the Marksbury Family Foundation, that dream will come to fruition. While the new beautiful building will allow us to improve services, many in the community are feeling nostalgic about the little library that could. This is also true for the staff that worked so hard to serve the Cardinal Valley community. So today, we invited two people that were instrumental in the success of the Village Branch. Many children in the community that were quote-unquote village kids know Betty Abdmishani as just Miss Betty, the first manager of the Village Branch, who opened the first bilingual branch in Lexington that served the predominantly Hispanic and Latino community. We also have with us Jackie Arakaki, library associate, who has been with the library since 2006. Her familiar face and unmatched drive to serve the community made her an integral part of the Village family. I'm grateful to introduce Betty and Jackie. Welcome to the podcast, Betty and Jackie. Thank you so much for joining us today on Tales from the Kentucky Room. Betty, it's been a while since you've worked for the...
Thank you for having us here.
Sure. So I wanted to take us back to when you started in librarianship and how you came down that road.
Oh,
Give us a little bit of background.
Okay, it goes way back. Well, how I got to be a librarian, my mother was a public librarian, and so I grew up around libraries. I used to help, I used to do her displays and all kinds of stuff, shelf for her. And so when my undergraduate degree was in English and Spanish literature, I double majored. So of course I loved books, I loved being around them. And came time to decide on what I was going to do after a major in English and Spanish that you can't do anything with. And I thought, I'll go to library school. And so I did. I went to the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. And so this is way back in 1974. And so I go back a long way. I graduated with my master's in library and information science in 76. And right away, I began working in the Miami-Dade Public Library in what at that time was a one of its kind, also totally Spanish branch. It was called the Hispanic Library. So I was there, but then I got married. We moved to Iran. I worked in a library in Iran. I came back from Iran.
Long story short,
worked another library. So I've done a little bit of everything, academic, special, public. But most of my life and my heart is in the public library.
Yeah. So somehow, some way, you made your way to Lexington, Kentucky.
That's right.
And the Lexington Public Library wanted to open up a bilingual library, Spanish and English. And they decided to hire the wonderful Betty Abdmishani. Tell us how that came about.
Well, I was at that time, I was working in Oregon at a public library, and I was the branch services coordinator. My husband had just accepted a job in Richmond, Kentucky. And so I began looking for jobs here and applied, and all of a sudden, there's this perfect position that had just
It's
opened.
funny how these things work, isn't it? Amazing.
And I applied. I applied also at Lexmark, but chose Village. It was where my heart was. So everything kind of had already been, by the time I was hired, I was interviewed in May of 2004. I began, my first day of work was June 2004. And the building was being finished. It was a refurbished storefront type that used to be an auto parts store before. So that was underway. So I worked out of the what is now the foundation office. That's where we had a desk and kind of decided, what are we going to do? What do we need? Began interviewing and hiring. And we began in September. As when the doors opened.
September of 2004.
So it was a very busy from June to September because, like I said, in June, walls were still going up. Floor, everything was being cleaned up. And we had a collection, a very small collection to move in. But there was shelving. There was everything had to be done. And there was a space that really wasn't meant to be a library.
Yeah. It was a storefront, of course, on the corner of Village Drive and
the location was perfect.
Yeah.
Location, and I'm so glad that they kept the same location 20 years later. They considered so many places before then, and it really is the heart of the community. Again, when we opened, we weren't sure what to expect. No, we did a lot of selling, advertising, marketing, outreach before the opening. But let me go back a little bit. Before I was hired to have a bookmobile, Lexington Public Library had a bookmobile. And the bookmobile that no longer have, as times have changed, used to travel to the areas where there were pockets of population that didn't get library service either because of distance. They're poorer areas. Perhaps they didn't have the transportation. So they would go to these community pockets around Fayette County. And one of the areas they went to was Cardinal Valley. They had a stop there that had it, I think, for several years. But the staff at that time, so I would say it's about the year 2000, when the very large migration of many, many Mexican immigrants were coming in, noticed a great deal of families who were coming to the bookmobile and couldn't get enough books, were overwhelmed to the fact that their children could actually hold books in their hands, and they would show up faithfully, and it would grow every week when that bookmobile came. So, they were super excited. They went back, told the administration, wow, this is like out of control. We can't have enough. So I suppose, like I said, I wasn't around then. They began thinking, well, what can we do? And they found this little storefront.
Yeah. There was definitely a need. My family immigrated here in 1986, and we lived in Cardinal Valley.
Oh, everybody starts in Cardinal Valley.
Our ESL tutor, my father hired somebody just a supplemental other than what we were learning in school. We would meet in the Southland location at the time, which is, I guess now is Beaumont.
Yes.
But yeah, we had to drive quite a ways, to
and if you didn't have transportation.
So there was no library access in
that
neighborhood.
And most migrants ended up in the Cardinal Valley area. Number one, rents are cheaper in that side of town.
Exactly.
Basically, that was the number one reason. And of course, once you have a few families there and you're new to the area, you look for people like you. So it just grew, and a cousin, an aunt, the cousin of a third cousin. So they kind of congregated there, and it was that area. 2004 was super busy. So anyway, that's how somehow our library director at that time was Kathleen Emha. Sold it to the lot board, and they came up with this idea to open this. And truly, I felt it was kind of an experiment, but you may not want to say this.
No, it was an experiment because, it's like
it was like, okay, if it works and if it doesn't work, know.
Because you never know what's the response.
It is a rented area. There was a lot of, should we be doing this? Why are we doing this? Why are we spending money on this? People who are not here legally? Why are we taking money from the other branches for materials?
That was the environment back then.
That was the environment. Like I said, open thinking. We'll see how long this lasts. We went out. Our children's librarian then, who was Amy Olson, basically were the first two hires. I hired her She was the first staff person that I hired. We both just walked the area talking to people. They'd made out little postcards and we would hand them out and we would tell people the library's coming. Went to the park, went to the schools, to the school. We went to Cardinal Valley. Later on, we did a lot with James Lane Allen, but it was Cardinal Valley at the time. We didn't know what to expect. The doors opened, I believe it was a Sunday, and the crowds were incredible. I have no idea.
How many staff did you open the branch with?
We had five.
Five.
We had 3 full-time, 4 full-time, and I believe 1 part-time, and a page. And the page was a UK work study program. Because the UK paid them.
So were all the staff Spanish speaking?
Yes. That was one of the things that I encouraged. I didn't. And also, we were open less hours than other people, than other branches. We had a different schedule, and it was a little confusing. Even for Lexington Public Library staff was confusing. We opened at 11, and we closed at
7.
8? No, I think 8.
8?
Yeah, 8. And we were closed on Fridays.
Oh, yeah.
So it was very confusing. Other people would send, other library branch staff would send people to village for help. It turned out we were closed. We were Friday. It created a lot of issues. It created a lot of issues with courier run complaints. Our older, more white population in Cardinal Valley, in Gardenside, complained why we didn't open in the mornings, because the morning people. Why was, it's their neighborhood, and why wasn't the library open in the mornings? Why were we closed on Friday when it was the day that everybody went to Save-A-Lot to buy groceries for the weekend? Why were we closed on Friday when...
These are all things that are hard for librarians to kind of grasp.
DVDs for the weekend. And this is when we had to pay $1.
I remember. Yeah.
Horrible.
The fines.
The
thank
fines
God.
were horrible.
Yeah.
It's like,
Thank God I got rid of that.
I
Right?
know.
Oh,
Sometimes the fine was more than the
The DVD was, I know. But they still wanted their DVDs on Friday. So, I don't know. I think when the branch was remodeled the second time around, and we added the section that had been...
That extension that was what they
the
called
beauty salon and the pawn shop.
The pawn shop.
Yeah. We went to full-time hours.
Yeah, because at the time it was just that one storefront.
Oh,
and then
yes,
it was
tiny.
To,
It was just, there was no
how was the
room.
collection built over there? That's my wheelhouse right now. So how did you build the collection?
Haphazardly.
Haphazardly, cobbled together.
At the time, it seems like a million years ago, honestly, but I forget the name. There's some term, library term. I want to say it's OCLC, but I don't know if that is. Anyway, our acquisitions and collections person would order these package things.
Mm-hmm. Probably from our vendor.
Yes,
Taylor,
the Spanish collection.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And that's what we would, before I came on, that's what they were doing. They were building the collection and ordering these Spanish collections. Mm-hmm. And basically that's what we had. The Spanish collection included academic titles, included a lot of titles from Spain, because that's where the majority of the books were being published at the time. There was not the Spanish...
Like South American.
Right now, Latin America is very difficult to buy books from there with local interest or on a more popular reading level. Yeah. So our collection was it was pretty. It was white. Not white. It was new. Yeah. It looked pretty. But our public, and that was another issue, our community was very low reading ability, if at all. We had a nice support from the larger Latino community, Peruvians, Brazilians, educated Mexicans who had left Mexico. They were journalists or lawyers and had to leave for persecution, all kinds of things. They read in a little more sophisticated level. Mm-hmm. But the majority of our everyday people who came in the door, it was DVDs.
They had low literacy.
So it was DVDs and their children. Help my child. I'm going to go get DVDs. And that was really our bread and butter. Mm-hmm. So slowly, it was very hard because that collection that had been purchased was expensive. It wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah. Thankfully, things have changed in the publishing world. There's a lot of imprints now that are coming from South America. So there's a lot of infrastructure, you can say, in the collection development realm. So definitely things have changed, which is fantastic.
And we were able to go in something that today we wouldn't be able to do. We went to the Guadalajara Book Fair in Mexico. Becca and I went. And this is Rebecca Montaño Smith. We were allowed to purchase books. And, we came back so excited because we came back with DVDs and popular things. And, of course, the bindings were terrible.
Yeah.
The majority was paperback. But it was really, good to get our hands on some of these things. And we were able to buy Inglés Sin Barreras. We didn't, these were huge sets of English learning materials that were advertised heavily on Univision and Telemundo, and everybody wanted them. And we were able to buy lots of these. The problem was there were many pieces to these things, and often they came back without a piece. And so anyway, but it was just learning what the community needed.
Yeah.
That it was all about opening those doors and just figuring it out. And the number one thing we found was, we opened on a Sunday, I believe. I'm pretty sure. And on Monday, people showed up about 3:00 with their kids.
Yeah.
Help my child to read.
Yeah.
My child is not reading well. I can't help my child because I don't know how to read.
Mm-hmm. So very quickly, you guys turned into more services.
It was like, and I'm not going to say no. So I would grab whoever was near me and say, can you sit down with this child? But it grew to where we were all bringing in our family members
to help volunteer.
Then we reached out to UK. And they would come. I remember there was a group from Calvary's Church, their youth group, and they volunteered, I think 2 or 3 times a week. Yeah. And it was really funny because between 3:30 and 6, we didn't have a lot of volunteers because people worked. And so we were it was mostly staff. And then when the Calvary people would come and go, here comes the Calvary, they're coming. And it was like such a relief to see them. Yeah. And they were great college students. They had such wonderful attitudes to develop rapport with the kids. So it was really, the whole thing about it takes a village, it took a village.
It really did.
We had retired teachers come in. And then later on, as we progressed, we were very fortunate to get a grant that allowed us to pay. We coordinated with the Fayette County school system, and we paid. We were able to pay a coordinator. We were able to pay established teachers in.
I remember that.
Cardinal Valley, teachers through Fayette County, but they had to speak Spanish. And they would come 4 days a week. And it was amazing. We had math teachers from the middle school come in and help the kids. We had certified teachers coming in.
So this is the predecessor of homework help.
Oh, yes. And it was, And then we started with snacks because these kids came in and they were running. First, they would ask staff, do you have any food? Can we borrow $1? And then it was running to, we got sick of seeing them go over to the Dollar Tree and save a lot and buy the orange.
Cheetos.
And the orange fingers would come and touch our books. It was horrible. So I think a church started bringing snacks first, and then it just evolved. And the same thing with our ESL classes. We tried to get bluegrass literacy. They had a problem with volunteers, and they didn't show up. So we ended up partnering with Hunter Presbyterian Church. They were amazing. Everything was just trial and error.
A lot of community outreach and community partners helped you develop the services. And of course, the staff. So
yes, the staff was incredible.
Yes, one of which is Jackie Arakaki.
Quickly, we grew. So Jackie was added. Raul Garces came from Northside to Village. Brian was added as a part-timer, but then quickly he became full-time. This was all right at the beginning.
So Jackie, when did you start?
Within the first year.
When did you start? I started in 2006. In April 2006 as part-time staff. In December 2006, I became full-time staff. But I started as volunteer because I used to volunteer for homework help. And after that, I applied for the part-time position, and after that, the full-time position.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what kind of services you were involved with. What kind of...
I've been involved with the ESL, the people from Hunter Presbyterian Church, the people from the church where I congregate, attend.
Jackie was the link to the church.
To the church. And usually, and at that time, I used to help with ESL. We coordinate with the GED classes. Most of the things the community, like us at that time, they used to show up to us and asking us, can you help me to apply for request a birth certificate? At that time, everything was just English only. And it's when we start helping the people, was not because we offering the services, but was because the people start coming to us and, can you help me to make a doctor appointment?
So it was very demand-driven, basically.
Was very demand.
We're 20 years ahead now. And really, many, many places have people who speak Spanish. The hospitals have translators. Stores have... There was nothing. The schools had no employees that spoke Spanish.
Yeah, exactly.
So we would go and translate for parents. It was very challenging.
Because every single staff at that time was very involved, helping everybody, and helping the teens. At that time, the teens, we used to have programs with the teens.
Yes, and there was a lot of gang involvement in the community at the time. Very large. Mainly, these teens, perhaps they came when they were young, 8, 9. By the time they got to middle school, it was a problem. And they had no hope. Because why would they study? Why did they go to school? They were going to end up working in a horse farm just like their parents.
Was no DACA at that time,
No.
too.
The DACA program, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrival, something, that gave a whole generation hope and changed. We saw literally kids coming in and working to get ahead, to learn.
And I think a lot of times this age group kind of gets lost between the two worlds. So they come from, this...
The language is not there.
Very, robust, vibrant culture.
Yes.
And then
we're family
oriented. And then they go to school where they don't fit in anywhere, and it's hard to slot in anywhere. So they kind of feel
lost.
Parents
are working.
Yes. Yeah.
Often very long hours. Children are being fed by perhaps a neighbor or a distant relative that is coming home, maybe when the kids get home from school. It was just...
straddling two worlds is very difficult. You can get
difficult.
knocked down very easily if you don't have, that hope that what DACA gave to these students.
They didn't have.
Yeah, in that time for that things that now, they are adults, was very, very difficult. Difficult in in so many ways, because most of them was involved in gangs. And that was kind of for us, like as they used to come in to the library, like as the group or gangs.
Their second home. It was funny because here are these kids who are dealing drugs and threatening people. But when they came to the library, they were like kids.
Yeah.
They wanted to have a place. We knew them all by their names, and we knew who the parents were. We knew all their street names. We had some uncomfortable moments and almost dangerous moments when there were rival gang members, but nothing ever happened. They respected the branch. We never got egged. We never got graffitied. We never had a window broken. It was just amazing. It was their home.
Yeah, it became a safe haven for them,
and because
really.
It helped their parents. Their parents could come and ask us, "Can you write a note to the teacher because my child had a fever last night?" Because they can't write.
Yeah.
And we would write, "Dear Mrs. and give it to them.
Yeah.
Made a doctor's appointment.
And the other thing was the computer lab at that time. Now, and
we never had enough computers.
Was exactly because the internet at that time still be a luxury for some neighborhoods, know. But at that time, in that area, people practically zero internet. Right. And people used to come into the library,
And they play games. That's all they wanted to do. And then we had people complaining, why are they playing games when we have important things to do?
Yeah.
And it was just... We never had enough, and that's why it was funny as
but even that is equity,
use decreased across the library system because people were getting cell phones, and over there it increased because you still had no internet at home.
But even the students, the kids that were playing on the computers, that's part of the equity that the library provided. Other kids had it at home.
Yeah.
So how it was a good leveling.
Mm-hmm. No, it was, and
for leveling out between the
I think
the kids
Jackie
at school.
had a big hand in this. I don't know how many times people would would come and say, my husband, my brother-in-law, my son was arrested, and we can't find them.
Yeah, at that time, not just me and Betty, but the staff at that time, we used to help people to find the families that was detained by immigration, by ICE, and nobody training us, but
you learn by fire.
Yeah, we learn how they can deposit money in their account.
In the jail, if they were in
and
jail.
How to send the package, the food package.
Yeah, it was
all that.
We just, if somebody came in, we try to help them. If we couldn't help them, we would find somebody that could help them.
So, it became more than a library.
Yes.
It became a home. It became a lifeline for a lot of people. And the staff are what provided that. And
this is how the people recognize a village, It's how the people, sometimes they are still showing up. And like us today, before I come in here, somebody was asking us for a request a birth certificate, the long version, and all that things.
Yes. And what was the word that you couldn't remember the other day? People had to do. Remember, you had to send it off to Mexico to get not the certification. There was another word.
Apostillamiento.
How do you say it? Apostille. An apostille. Yeah. And it's actually something that you get from the state. But you have to have a long form birth certificate. And another thing that we ran into is how many birth certificates were wrong.
Yeah.
Wow.
They would go apply for a passport or whatever they needed the birth certificate for. And it turned out that often because of the last names, we have multiple last names, and often you keep the mother, you keep your mother's name becomes your middle name, and you add your father's name as at the end. Well, people either when they were processed, when they came through, or the first time they entered school or whatever, they changed it because, they're used to, no, that can't be your last name. And so birth certificates are wrong. Another thing is people were having babies. And again, there were no translators at that time. They either didn't ask when they would fill out because many of these people didn't write. So they had to ask, what is the baby's name, the baby's father, whatever. And they just would put Mexican.
Oh, wow.
Well, a lot of people weren't born in Mexico. So it's difficult to get a passport.
Yeah.
Because they needed that to get a Mexican passport or to get a Honduran passport or to get a Guatemalan passport. And they had the wrong places. It was incredible. The father's place of birth, the mother's place of birth, they would put the wrong ones. The last names were turned around. So we got very good at working with the state,
the health department,
UK.
And UK,
they weren't too helpful.
Yeah.
It was just, but it was learning
we
by
learned
doing
a lot
it.
of things.
By doing it.
I feel like Village had completely shifted the way the entire library system was doing librarianship. Some branches, obviously, they have high circulation and it's all about the books and the programs, etc. Village became a very service-based library. What other services were you guys able to provide, and what other programs other than just translation services?
Programs. At that time, we used to, for example, between the cultural programs that I used to be in charge, for example, one summer, between the library and FLACA, we taught the guitar program. And the music.
Jackie is the president of FLACA, by the way.
And the music, and theater too. And with the teenagers. I work specific that programs with teenagers. Yeah, and the guitar program was a boom because we started just in the summer, the 2 months of the summer. But was very successful
with the
UK teachers.
Uh-huh.
And we
graduate students
doing
were
the
teaching.
whole year, the whole school year. Yeah, and at the end of the workshop, the teens do a presentation in the library theater.
And they wanted to keep going. We had the same type of, a lot of it we had to partner because there was no way. For staff, we didn't have the time, plus we didn't have the skills. Yeah, time and skills were the two things. So we also partnered with, it used to be AHU, Association for Hispanics United, Asociación de Hispanos Unidos. And they did leadership workshops at our branch for the youth.
With Fayette County Public Schools.
With the schools.
With Linda Fraser.
Yeah. Fayette County Schools, finally, it took a long time for them to partner, but they finally partnered. Yeah. We would have promotores program. We used to bring in people who trained people to be kind of the first responders in the community, to teach neighbors, families, how to be aware of symptoms of heart attacks, what to do if your child has a fever, what to do you suspect you have a AIDS or some other sexually transmitted disease. All kinds of, there were different sessions, and they were very well attended. And then these people were trained. These were community people, mothers and neighbors and grandmothers who came in for the training. And then they were able to, when their neighbor had a terrible headache, they would ask him, well, do you feel this? You would feel that? And then say, you need to go to the hospital. They had blood pressure, part of their training. They, at their graduation, there was 10 or 12-week classes. They would receive a blood pressure kit. They received a stethoscope.
And so the CPR certificate.
Like kind of first aid responders in their communities. So an apartment building had this woman, they would say, oh, go check with her. She can tell you if your bone is broken. Well, I don't know if she could tell you if your bone is broken. But, it was amazing. We did, oh my gosh, there was so many
things. GED classes too.
GED.
We partnered with Scott
We
County,
could not find
all of that from this tiny space.
Yeah.
That's what is amazing.
Little space with minimal staff and a tiny budget. Yes. Plus, we the DVDs. It was like a nightmare. DVDs were a nightmare because they were never in, and that was the number one thing people lined up for. Unfortunately, the books didn't fly out as fast, but
That's okay.
the children didn't get enough of books. And the thing that didn't reflect, and this is, kind of a problem across the board in all libraries, is they spent time at the library.
Yes.
So they would read in the library. They would come and read the magazines or the books in the library or spend time with their children. They were afraid to take the books home because the books would get destroyed. There were too many people in their homes. The books might get lost. So that doesn't, we used to have this count that we did at the end of the month, and you just kind of circulate. It couldn't really reflect because we couldn't keep up with it.
Yeah.
We exaggerated
we no longer
sometimes.
really,
We
no longer do that. We
sometimes.
do count circulation, but there's other aspects of library use that we do count. So, and
But
and Village was a very heavily used
our,
library.
Our door count, proportionate to maybe the other branches, did not reflect the circulation. I mean, it was greater than our circulation, much greater than the circulation, because most of it happened in the branch. We had Thanksgiving baskets, Christmas baskets.
The feeding program for the summer
we started the summer reading, the feeding program. We partnered with Fayette County schools, and we were the first ones to provide hot lunches for children. And families could come. Later on, it was only children, but in the beginning, the family could come. Yeah, so it was just if you walked in the door and you had a problem, we didn't say, we don't do that here. It was, let's see if we can help. Jackie, Raul, can you see look at our list. Can somebody find a lawyer for these people? Who can we refer to that can help them find a lawyer because their husband's in jail? We didn't go be a lawyer, and we couldn't, but you always sent that person with some direction. We didn't say, we don't do that here. Whether it was, for a while, we were allowed to do notarize.
Yeah, I used to be one.
Jackie was a notary. Rebecca was a notary. Because people were being ripped off. Particularly with cars, buying cars. They would go to these places where they're being charged $250 to notarize.
Yeah.
So it was a really serious problem. I mean, the county clerk talked to us and said, people are being scammed. So we were allowed to.
At that time, we were allowed to do.
Yeah, we were allowed to do a lot of things that not in the normal scope. And we were fortunate in that.
Yeah. Yeah, because there was a need for it.
There was a need.
So the Village branch kind of operated under different policies and procedures in the other branch.
And that created some problems. Because others felt that the publics would sometimes go to Tate's Creek and say, well, the village didn't do that.
Yeah.
So it was a problem. I had to fight to be able to do a lot of things that we did.
But in those ways, you set the standard.
I'm very proud.
Yeah. Because a lot of things now are being done at the branches that weren't done before.
Exactly.
I think the number one thing that I am the happiest for is no fines.
Yes.
I argued about that. Oh, it was heartbreaking to charge children and parents.
When the priority for them was food, know, not pay fines.
They never came back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes you finish to pay. Sometimes you finish to pay the fine.
I would pay the fines.
Sometimes
my money.
Yeah. Sometimes Betty was like, "Cause I'll be right back." Okay, pay from Betty, just charge from my car. Okay, and that people used to come to the library like us. My family don't have nothing to eat tonight. Zero food, no food, nothing. And Betty, I'll be right back. Save a lot.
Yeah, brought a bag.
Yeah.
Of course. The library didn't know that. I didn't do that.
Betty, after when I spent some time at Village, countless kids, or they're no longer kids.
No, they're adults.
Teenagers, college kids asking, "Is Miss Betty still here?" I'm like, "No, she's retired."
Yes.
They're like, "Oh, Miss Betty's my godmother."
Yes. Oh,
I'm
yes.
like, "How many kids are you the godmother of, Miss Betty?"
A lot.
A lot.
A lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
They yeah, it was just it was really kind of a survival kind of thing. They had to survive and we had to survive. So it was, okay, it's a new day. We'll see what comes, We befriended the local police.
Yeah.
They would come by. It was just, we were there. We were in the right place for an area that really needed services. And now we have, I forget the name of the center, the church,
San Juan Diego.
San Juan Diego. A lovely Spanish monastery-looking building there. That wasn't there. There was nothing. Nothing.
And now it's a vibrant community with restaurants and stores,
Little Mexico.
Little Mexico. It's lovely, yeah.
Mexington. That's what they used to call it, Mexington.
It's come a long way.
It has.
Yeah, it's come a long way.
It's incredible. It's 20 years seems like a short time, and yet it's a lifetime away.
Yes. And of course, I mean, I'm so glad that we finally got the ownership of that spot, and now we're having this beautiful building. Hopefully, can you imagine what can come out of that building?
Amazing.
Hopefully.
And it's pride. Pride.
Yes, pride in the area.
I was talking even a little while ago about the gangs, how they were proud. The community was proud of having their place. And I think that's the number one. Often people would say, why you guys, why you have this hole in the wall? Look at the other places. Why, just because and this came from many
people in the community.
Long-time Lexingtonians who were among, our many white supporters. And they say, it's not fair. It's not fair. And I'm going to go talk to somebody because it's not fair. And so it's amazing. It's really amazing how far I thought many times, during budget problems, during changes in administration, they're going to close us down. They're going to close us down.
Yeah, we definitely. It would have been a disaster, I think, if they did.
There were a lot of people, and again, not the Latino community because they're silent. The poor Latino community. There's some loud ones like us, but the immediate community. But the support from the general community was immense. Yeah.
Definitely. And I mean, and it was apparent when we did the master facilities plan. That was predominantly the number one topic that people were really adamant about happening, is the development of an actual building in the area. And it was serendipitous,
it's amazing. Now you're going to drive from the airport and you're going to drive, down Versailles Road and see this lovely building.
Yes.
It looks beautiful.
Rather than, there's some of those little strips, mall stores still there, but it's just lovely. I was so many meetings with the planning committee, how they fixed the sidewalks and all that is just, it looks.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you change the introduction to Lexington coming in from the airport.
Yeah. When you change the environment of people's surroundings, hopefully it has a positive impact on the community. Just so the people of Village Branch had that positive.
The buildings, the apartment buildings were very badly maintained at that time. Extremely horribly maintained, and I think that's improved a little bit.
Yeah,
I think some of the owners either are more responsible, or they've been fined enough to feel they had to take care of some things. But the environment has a lot to do with it.
Oh yes. And I mean, your impact and Jackie and other staff's impact on the community has lasted a long time beyond the walls of that building, and I really wanted to document that in the history of Lexington. And that's why I invited both of you guys here. And I really appreciate you guys coming and telling us the story of Village, the little library that could. And I'm really excited to see what they can do with such a beautiful building and a bigger staff.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much, Betty, and thank you so much, Jackie, for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for listening to Tales from the Kentucky Room, a podcast brought to you by the Central Library's Kentucky Room staff at the Lexington Public Library. If you enjoyed listening, please take a minute to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcasts. If you have any questions about local history or genealogy research, you can visit us in the Kentucky Room to use our collection and newspaper microfilm, or you can email us at elibrarian@lexpublib.org. That's elibrarian@lexpublib.org. I'm Mariam, and we'll be back with another trip down Lexington's memory lane.